Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm diving into one of the most talked about moments on the House floor this week, a speech that cuts through the noise and pulls back the curtain on what some are calling the GOP's most silly and cynical move yet. So, let's set the stage. The House just debated a resolution that condemns socialism in all its forms. Sounds straightforward, right? But here's the thing, it's not. I rise to oppose this resolution because it's built on a foundation of falsehoods and fear. The folks behind this bill want you to believe socialism is a one-way ticket to disaster, but that's just not backed up by reality. Take a look at countries like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. They're not dystopian wastelands, they're democracies with booming economies and solid safety nets. So why all the scare tactics? Simple, it's about politics, not facts. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not waving a red flag here. I'm not a socialist. I see myself as a Tom Paine Democrat. Someone who believes in freedom, democracy, and a government that works for everyone. But this resolution, it's dishonest. It tries to lump democratic socialism, think Medicare, Social Security, public schools, in with brutal communist regimes. That's not just wrong, it's deliberate. And let's talk about the history. The authors of this resolution are quoting Jefferson and Madison, pretending their words apply to socialism, a concept that didn't even exist back then, and quoting Jefferson on redistribution while skipping over the fact he enslaved over 600 people. That's irony you can't make up. Here's what really matters. Every time these kinds of resolutions pop up, there's a pattern. Social programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security get smeared as socialist. But millions of Americans depend on these programs every single day. Calling them dangerous is just a ploy to chip away at the things that keep us safe and healthy. But here's the kicker, if you're so against socialism and communism, why is there zero outrage when Trump cozies up to actual communist dictators? Kim Jong-un, Putin, Xi Jinping. These aren't just leaders, they're authoritarian rulers with horrendous records, yet Trump calls them smart, brilliant, even friends. Meanwhile, this resolution wants you to believe the real threat is democratic socialism. So let's call this what it is, a political stunt. It's not about protecting democracy. It's about rewriting history and setting the stage to gut the safety net millions rely on. That's why I say no to this resolution, because the stakes are real and the truth matters. If you found this breakdown helpful, go ahead and hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more straight talk analysis. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to oppose this cynical and silly resolution. I am not a socialist myself, but a Tom Paine Democrat, a champion of strong democracy, universal freedom, and equal rights for everybody. But this resolution is ridiculous. From its first paragraph, it promotes the fallacy that socialist ideology leads to social collapse. In fact, many of our strongest democratic allies on earth, including Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, and Finland, lead strong democratic socialist governments and thriving societies and economies. Yet House Republicans base their entire resolution on this falsehood and advance a false equation between democratic socialism and communist dictatorship, a preposterous assertion that contaminates the entire resolution. The resolution even tries to conscript to these ideological deceptions the words of President Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, Enlightenment liberals who lived long before socialist ideology even existed and would detest the fanatical theocratic politics of the MAGA movement and the plutocratic billionaires and plundering CEOs who are running things behind the curtains. Thomas Jefferson is quoted embarrassingly in this resolution for the proposition that to take property from one to give to another is to violate arbitrarily the first principle of association. This is a bizarre argument, not only because Thomas Jefferson died in 1826, a decade before the word socialism even existed and was in common use. It is also bizarre because Jefferson shamefully owned more than 600 enslaved people over the course of his lifetime, and whatever his many other virtues, and he had many, his entire livelihood was based on appropriating the labor of other people against their will and stealing their property that they should have had in their own bodies and in their own lives. The resolution is completely disoriented. It plainly feeds into the decades-long Republican obsession with labeling the great programmatic achievements of American democracy as socialism, including Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, public education, public health measures, and the Affordable Care Act. By defining essential democratic public programs as socialist and claiming that socialism inevitably leads to Stalinist communism and social collapse, these plutocrat Republicans are plainly working to undermine the living standards of the working class majority of America and rip up the social fabric of the country. Meantime, President Trump's heroes and best friends in the world are communist dictators. If House Republicans really want to oppose the promotion of socialist ideology, why don't they write a letter to President Trump and condemn his worship and admiration of Stalinist dictator Kim Jong-un of North Korea? Quote, "We have a unique relationship and a very special friendship." Former KGB officer Vladimir Putin, who said that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century. Of him, Trump says, "Putin, very smart. Will he become my new best friend?" And what about the chief of the Chinese Communist Party, President Xi? Trump describes him as a brilliant man. He's got the look, the brain, the whole thing. President Trump has no problems with the actual horrors of communism today, like the Chinese government's massive human rights violations against the Uyghurs, the Tibetans, and political dissenters in their country. Quote, "Well, he's a brilliant guy. He controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist." Or how about Vladimir Putin's persecution and poisoning of human rights and anti-corruption activists like Alexei Navalny? Of him, Trump says, "I don't know exactly what happened there. We haven't had any proof yet, but I'll take a look." I'm voting no on this pathetic, disoriented resolution, which is divorced from reality and drenched in right-wing ideology. It will only serve to accelerate MAGA's attempts to defund the essential social programs that are central to American democracy, that were built by the American people, like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which they call socialism, but which serve our people. Thank you for yielding, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. The lady from California reserves.
I reserve the balance of my time.
Lady from California reserves the balance of her time. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.